What if one of the world's most valuable gemstones wasn't forged by fire, buried beneath mountains, or mined from the earth? What if it was created by a simple oyster, hidden deep beneath the ocean? For over 4,000 years, pearls have been symbols of power, wealth, and mystery. But almost everything we've been told about them is wrong. The truth is more surprising, more beautiful, and begins with something no one expects: pain. This is the incredible story of how nature creates one of its greatest treasures. Walk into any jewelry store and you'll see diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires sparkling under bright lights. But every one of those gemstones followed the same journey. They formed deep inside the earth over millions of years, were mined from solid rock, and only became beautiful after skilled craftsmen cut and polished them. Without human hands, most gemstones would never reveal their true beauty. Pearls are completely different. The moment an oyster is opened and a perfect pearl is discovered, it is already complete. No cutting, no polishing, no shaping. Nature has done all the work. Think of it this way: most gemstones are like raw ingredients waiting for a chef. A pearl is the finished cake, beautifully decorated before anyone even finds it. For thousands of years, this mystery amazed civilizations. Some believed pearls fell from heaven. Others thought they were drops of moonlight trapped inside the sea, while some called them the tears of the gods. Their soft glow, known today as luster, seemed almost alive, making pearls unlike any other gemstone on Earth. Long before diamonds became symbols of luxury, pearls were the world's most treasured gems. Kings, queens, and emperors proudly displayed them as signs of wealth and divine favor. Unlike gold or silver, pearls couldn't be mined, they couldn't be forged or manufactured. Every perfect pearl depended entirely on nature, making them astonishingly rare. Finding one was like winning a lottery hidden beneath thousands of square miles of ocean. That rarity fueled trade across continents, inspired countless legends, and made pearls some of the most valuable objects in the ancient world. Yet despite all that admiration, people completely misunderstood how they were formed. For centuries, stories claimed oysters created pearls because they loved beauty, or that moonlight entered their shells during full moons. The truth was far less magical, yet somehow even more extraordinary, because pearls aren't created as gifts from nature. They begin as a defense mechanism. Every pearl starts with an unwanted visitor inside an oyster, triggering a quiet battle hidden beneath the ocean. To understand that battle, we first need to meet the unlikely architect behind every pearl ever discovered. Deep beneath the ocean, an oyster lives a surprisingly simple life. It doesn't hunt or chase prey. Instead, it quietly filters seawater, collecting tiny organisms for food. From the outside, an oyster hardly looks special. Its shell is rough, covered in algae and marine life. Most people would never guess it hides one of nature's greatest engineering secrets. Unlike fish, an oyster can't swim away from danger. It can't fight or escape. If something harmful enters its shell, it's trapped with it. That unwanted intruder is rarely a grain of sand. More often, it's a tiny parasite, larva, or fragment of damaged tissue that becomes lodged inside the oyster's soft mantle. Unable to remove it, the oyster responds in the only way it can. It begins coating the invader with nacre, also known as mother of pearl. Nacre is made from microscopic layers of calcium carbonate held together by natural proteins. Layer by layer, these crystals form one of the strongest natural composite materials known to science. Engineers still study nacre today while developing advanced armor and lightweight materials, but the oyster isn't trying to create beauty, it's simply trying to survive. Every new layer isolates the irritant, making it smoother and less harmful. Months become years, and the coating grows thicker until the original intruder is completely sealed away. The result is a pearl, not something created for decoration, but nature's version of a scar. That's what makes pearls unique among gemstones. Diamonds begin with immense pressure deep underground. Emeralds form through geological activity. Pearls begin with vulnerability, patience, and resilience. Perhaps that's why they've long symbolized wisdom, endurance, and beauty born from hardship. But one famous belief about pearls has survived for centuries, and modern science has shown it's mostly wrong. If you ask most people how a pearl is formed, they'll probably give the same answer. A grain of sand gets inside an oyster. It's one of the most famous stories in the world. It's taught in classrooms, repeated in cartoons, and even mentioned in jewelry stores. The idea sounds simple. A grain of sand enters the shell, irritates the oyster, and is slowly coated until it becomes a pearl. But modern science tells a different story. Marine biologists have studied thousands of wild oysters and found that ordinary sand is rarely the cause of a natural pearl. In most cases, a grain of sand is simply flushed back out with the flow of water before it can become trapped. Instead, most natural pearls begin because of something alive. Tiny parasites, microscopic worms, larvae, or fragments of damaged tissue become lodged inside the oyster's delicate mantle. Recognizing the threat, the oyster immediately begins surrounding it with layer after layer of nacre until the intruder is completely sealed away. In other words, pearls don't usually begin with sand, they begin with life itself. So why has the sand story survived for centuries? Because it's simple. Explaining parasites, immune responses, and microscopic crystal layers is far more complicated than saying a grain of sand got stuck. Like many famous myths throughout history, the story endured because it was easy to understand, but that wasn't the only legend surrounding pearls. Ancient Indians believed oysters rose to the ocean's surface during storms, opened their shells, and captured pure raindrops that transformed into pearls. In China, glowing pearls were said to belong to dragons, symbolizing wisdom, power, and immortality. Persians believed lightning striking the sea created pearls, while the ancient Greeks claimed they were the hardened tears of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Across cultures, one belief remained the same. Something this beautiful couldn't possibly come from an ordinary oyster. Yet the truth is even more remarkable. An oyster doesn't create a pearl to make something beautiful. It simply responds to hardship, one microscopic layer at a time. But if oysters have existed for millions of years, why weren't pearls everywhere? Why did kings spend fortunes to own even one? The answer lies in just how incredibly rare natural pearls really were. Today, buying pearls is as easy as walking into a jewelry store, but for most of history, there were no pearl farms. Every pearl depended entirely on chance. Before sunrise, divers climbed into small wooden boats, armed with nothing more than ropes, stone weights, and extraordinary courage. There were no oxygen tanks, no diving masks, no underwater equipment, just one deep breath. Hidden beneath the waves were thousands of oysters. Almost every one was empty. Modern estimates suggest only a tiny fraction of wild pearl oysters ever produce a natural pearl, and only a handful of those become perfectly round with exceptional luster. Divers could spend weeks collecting thousands of oysters, only to return home without finding a single valuable pearl. Yet they kept searching, because one perfect pearl could change a person's life. Unlike gold or silver, pearls couldn't be mined from rich deposits. Nature alone decided where and when they appeared. That unpredictability made them priceless. Long before diamonds became the ultimate luxury, pearls were the gemstone of kings. Rulers in Mesopotamia, Persia, India, and China treasured them as symbols of power, wisdom, and divine favor. But nowhere did pearl fever reach greater heights than in ancient Rome. Roman nobles decorated clothing, crowns, hairstyles, and jewelry with pearls. Some wealthy women even embroidered pearls into their sandals, not because it was practical, but because it displayed unimaginable wealth. Merchants crossed deserts and oceans to supply Rome's endless demand. Pearls from the Persian Gulf, India, and later the Americas became some of the most valuable trade goods in the ancient world. The rarer the pearl, the greater the prestige. But eventually, owning pearls wasn't enough. Some people wanted to prove they were so wealthy they could afford to destroy them, and no one demonstrated that better than Cleopatra. By the 1st century BC, the Roman world had become obsessed with pearls. They weren't simply jewelry, they were symbols of power, wealth, and status. No amount of money could force the ocean to create a pearl, making them one of the rarest treasures on earth. Among all those who possessed them, one woman turned a single pearl into one of history's most unforgettable displays of extravagance. Her name was Cleopatra. According to ancient historians, Cleopatra once challenged the Roman general Mark Antony, claiming she could host host the most expensive banquet ever held. Antony accepted the wager. As the meal unfolded, nothing seemed unusually extravagant. Then Cleopatra removed one enormous natural pearl from her earring. Ancient writers described it as one of the most valuable pearls in existence. Instead of placing it in a treasure chest, she dropped it into a goblet of strong vinegar. Because pearls are made mostly of calcium carbonate, acid slowly reacts with their surface. Ancient accounts claim she allowed the pearl to dissolve before drinking the mixture, though historians still debate how literally the story should be taken. Whether every detail is true or not, the message was clear. Cleopatra wasn't trying to enjoy a drink. She was proving that she was wealthy enough to destroy a fortune without hesitation, simply to win a bet. That was the ancient world's equivalent. Mark Antony reportedly admitted defeat, and the story became one of history's greatest examples of extravagant wealth. For more than 2,000 years, people have remembered Cleopatra's pearl not simply because it was valuable, but because it revealed something timeless about human nature. Luxury has rarely been about necessity. It's about owning what others cannot, and sometimes showing that you can afford to waste it. But while rulers displayed pearls inside magnificent palaces, someone else paid the true price for finding them, because every pearl worn by kings and queens began with someone risking their life beneath the sea. Behind every priceless pearl lies a story most people never hear. Before pearls reached royal crowns or elegant necklaces, someone had to find them. For thousands of years, that responsibility belonged to pearl divers, people who risked their lives every day for a chance to discover a single hidden treasure. Picture standing on a small wooden boat before sunrise. No oxygen tanks, no diving masks, no modern equipment, just a rope, a woven basket, and a heavy stone to pull you quickly toward the ocean floor. With one deep breath, the diver disappears beneath the waves. Within seconds, sunlight fades, the pressure increases, and time begins to run out. Reaching the seabed, the diver grabs as many oysters as possible before burning lungs force the desperate climb back to the surface. Then they do it all again, dozens of times each day. The dangers were everywhere: powerful currents, violent storms, sharp coral, jellyfish, sharks, and even a small cramp underwater could become fatal. Many divers suffered permanent hearing damage, lung injuries, or never resurfaced at all. And after risking everything, there was still almost no guarantee of success. Thousands of oysters might be collected and opened, only for every single one to contain nothing. But occasionally, an oyster revealed a perfectly round, glowing pearl. In that moment, years of danger suddenly felt worthwhile. One exceptional pearl could be worth more than years of ordinary labor. The Persian Gulf became famous for producing some of history's finest natural pearls, supporting coastal communities for thousands of years. The waters of India and Sri Lanka also supplied royal courts across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Then, during the Age of Exploration, Spanish explorers discovered rich pearl beds in the Caribbean and along the northern coast of South America. Pearls poured into Europe, and demand grew even greater, but the oceans were never limitless. As pearls became more valuable, millions of oysters were harvested without giving them time to recover. Entire oyster beds disappeared, and before anyone realized it, one of nature's greatest treasures was becoming dangerously scarce. People believed the oceans could never be exhausted. If one pearl bed became empty, another would surely be found. History proved otherwise. By the 18th and 19th centuries, demand for pearls had exploded. Royal families, wealthy merchants, and European aristocrats all wanted larger, rarer pearls, but nature simply couldn't keep up. A natural pearl often took years to form, and only a tiny percentage of oysters ever produced one worth selling. Still, millions of oysters were harvested every year. Entire reefs disappeared. Then industrialization made things even worse. Pollution from factories, agriculture, and expanding cities flowed into coastal waters. Because oysters survived by filtering seawater, they also absorbed harmful contaminants they couldn't escape. As water quality declined, oyster populations collapsed. By the late 1800s, high-quality natural pearls had become incredibly rare. Prices soared, pearl diving communities struggled to survive, and many believed the age of natural pearls was coming to an end. It seemed impossible to replace something that only nature could create. Then a young Japanese entrepreneur asked a question that changed history. What if humans didn't have to wait for nature? His name was Kokichi Mikimoto. Most people dismissed the idea. Pearls were miracles. You couldn't grow miracles, or could you? Kokichi Mikimoto wasn't a scientist or a king. He was the son of a noodle shop owner who grew up watching pearl divers depend entirely on luck. One bad season or one empty oyster bed could destroy a family's livelihood. Instead of accepting that reality, he tried to understand how pearls actually formed. After years of studying oysters, he realized something important. An oyster wasn't trying to create a pearl. It was simply protecting itself. That meant if a harmless object could be placed inside the oyster correctly, perhaps the oyster would naturally do the rest. The idea sounded simple. Making it work was incredibly difficult. Experiment after experiment failed. Oysters rejected the implants, died, or produced poor quality pearls. Years of work disappeared with little to show for it. But Mikimoto refused to give up. Eventually, he and other pioneering researchers perfected a method that worked. A trained technician carefully inserted a smooth round bead along with a tiny piece of donor mantle tissue into a healthy oyster. The oyster was then returned to clean seawater. Months became years. Inside the shell, the oyster coated the bead with thousands of microscopic layers of nacre, exactly as it would in nature. The result was a beautiful cultured pearl. It wasn't manufactured in a factory. It was still created by a living oyster. Humans simply guided the process. The invention transformed the jewelry world. For thousands of years, pearls had been reserved for emperors, queens, and the extremely wealthy. Now millions of ordinary people could finally own them. Yet even today, humans still can't control the most important part of the process. Nature always has the final say. Some oysters reject the implant. Others create irregular pearls. Only a small percentage produce the flawless gems every jeweler hopes to find. Even after unlocking the secret, growing the perfect pearl remains one of nature's greatest gambles. When people hear the words pearl farm, many imagine a factory producing identical pearls every day. The reality is very different. A pearl farm is much more like a vineyard or an orchard. Farmers can choose healthy oysters, keep the water clean, and protect them from disease, but they can't force nature to create a perfect pearl. The process begins with a delicate operation. A skilled technician gently opens the oyster and places a polished bead along with a tiny piece of donor mantle tissue inside its body. The oyster is then returned to the sea, where nature takes over. And then comes the hardest part, waiting. Not for days or weeks, but often 2 to 4 years. During that time, the oysters require constant care. Farmers regularly clean their shells, remove algae and barnacles, protect them from predators, and carefully monitor water temperature, oxygen levels, and pollution. Even with years of care, success is never guaranteed. Some oysters reject the bead completely. Others stop producing nacre before the pearl is finished. Some create rough or misshapen pearls, while others die before the process is complete. Only a small percentage produce the smooth, perfectly round pearls that jewelers dream of. That's why exceptional pearls remain so valuable. Experts judge them by several qualities: size, shape, surface quality, color, and most importantly, luster. The soft glow that seems to come from within rather than simply reflecting light. Every pearl is unique. Some display creamy white tones, others soft pink overtones. South Sea pearls are famous for their rich golden color, while Tahitian pearls are known for their beautiful shades of gray, green, and black. No two pearls are ever exactly alike because each oyster responds differently. Despite everything humans have learned, one thing remains beyond our control: the ocean itself. Climate change, pollution, habitat loss, and warming seas continue to threaten oyster populations around the world. Healthy oceans are essential not only for pearl farming, but also for the survival of wild oysters that have created these remarkable gems for millions of years. The future of pearls ultimately depends on the health of the oceans that give them life. Walk into any jewelry store today, and diamonds may steal the spotlight, but pearls have always felt different. Unlike every other gemstone, they are created entirely by a living creature. No volcanic eruptions, no crushing pressure beneath mountains, no cutting or polishing by human hands. Just one quiet oyster responding to an unexpected challenge. Every pearl begins with an unwanted visitor, an irritation, a tiny problem the oyster cannot remove. Instead of fighting it, the oyster patiently surrounds it with layer after layer of nacre until something extraordinary begins to take shape. Perhaps that's why pearls have fascinated humanity for more than 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptians treasured them. Roman emperors displayed them as symbols of power. Chinese rulers admired them. Indian kings offered them in sacred ceremonies. European queens wore them as signs of royalty. Across every civilization, pearls represented beauty, rarity, and prestige. Today, we understand their true origin. They aren't gifts from the gods or drops of moonlight trapped beneath the sea. They're the result of patience, resilience, and nature's remarkable ability to transform hardship into beauty. Every pearl carries a unique story, a story that began deep beneath the ocean, passed through the hands of fearless divers, traveled across ancient trade routes, inspired legends, transformed the jewelry industry, and eventually found its way into human history. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson pearls have to offer. Perfection isn't created instantly. It's built slowly, one layer at a time. The next time you see a pearl necklace, don't just see a beautiful piece of jewelry. See the quiet oyster that created it. See the divers who once risked their lives searching for it. See the scientists who uncovered its secrets. See the farmers who carefully protect the oceans where it grows. Because unlike every other gemstone, a pearl is already complete the moment nature lets it go. And maybe that's why, after more than 4,000 years, the world still hasn't stopped falling in love with pearls.